Cops offer these types of rewards for two reasons. But it's particularly personal for someone like Rod because he's been here before. The Wharfies were on strike for so long, they say they've now forgotten how to be Wharfies.
$1 million to help find Cleo.
It's the fastest a reward's ever been offered up following a disappearance. Cops offer these types of rewards for two reasons. First, they've got absolutely no idea what happened and it's a last roll of the dice. That doesn't usually happen 6 days after a crime has been committed though. The second reason is they have a hunch and they want to flush out some information. There were 4 things that came to mind from the press conference today about Cleo's disappearance. The first is the cops have put paid to any thought that she wandered off. She was taken.
Given the amount of resources and the detailed search that's taken place, that leads us to believe that she was taken from the tent.
That was Rod Wild. He's Detective Superintendent in the Major Crime Squad. The abduction of a child is the nightmare scenario for any cop. Nothing else comes close. But it's particularly personal for someone like Rod because he's been here before. He was in the Major Crime Squad when Hayley Dodd went missing. Rod doesn't want to be in a position like he was in 2004, 5 years after Hayley was last seen alive, when he had to say, unfortunately there's no breakthrough and we're still wanting people to come forward. Rod gave us another insight into police thinking today when he said this.
We're hopeful, obviously, that we'll find Cleo alive, but we hold grave fears for her safety.
A cop's never going to come out this early and say they think a missing child is dead. But that's now more probability than possibility. The third bit of information out of the presser was very subtle.
Bringing those persons or person to account who are involved in their disappearance.
That was Cole Blanche. He's running the WA Police Force at the moment while Chris Dawson's on COVID duties. Blanche said persons, plural in the first instance there.
They talked a lot about the size of the task force.
Yeah. And they weren't trying to convince you and me that they're taking it seriously. They're talking directly to whoever took Cleo. That's the fourth thing that's clear from the press conference today. They're getting in the heads of whoever abducted her.
With in excess of 100 officers attached to that task force.
We're out there with boots on the ground. There's over 100 people invested in Task Force Rhodia, hundreds of thousands of data points, hundreds of witnesses.
Making them think that someone somewhere knows what they did.
Look at people who have acted strangely since the 16th.
That the whole of Australia is looking for them.
Look, we've been in touch with all jurisdictions around Australia. We want to get this information out there.
Because when someone's under pressure, they make mistakes. Now, if you've taken a child, do you remain at the site?
Unlikely.
No. You drive away from the scene of the crime and you drive very fast, which might be why police keep saying things like this.
And upload any CCTV they may have or dash cam if they're travelling on those roads.
What about the SafeWA app?
Not using it.
As it's well known, police cannot access that data.
Cole Blanche reckons they don't need it.
There are many other data sets we can access and far greater data sets that can give us better information about the location of Cleo.
But I reckon if I took a poll of West Australians right now, 99.9% would say they'd have no problem with police harvesting data from anywhere if it increased their chance of finding a missing 4-year-old girl.
Absolutely, all on the same page there. Not so at Fremantle Port.
No. The Wharfies were on strike for so long, they say they've now forgotten how to be Wharfies. And so they need to be retrained in the policies and procedures that govern work on the docks, which means they need to spend 4 hours in the office before their shift starts reading instruction manuals and occupational health and safety documents. But they're not on strike. You got to admire the audacity of these guys. I think they saw that show we did last week and took up the challenge.
You might be right.
Ain't no strike like a Wharfie strike. Wharfies know every trick in the book. It's the strike you have when you've promised not to strike. The Wharfies down tools 3 months ago after stevedoring company Qube refused to accept 40-odd claims lodged by the MUA as part of the new pay deal. Collective bargaining at its purest.
You can't treat the working man this way. One day we'll form a union.
The log of claims from the MUA then grew to 66 and contained such gems as all written warnings being stripped from employee files.
Then we'll go too far and get corrupt and shiftless, and the Japanese will eat us alive.
Last week, the federal government threatened to intervene and get the Fair Work Commission, that's our industrial umpire, involved in the dispute. The MUA got spooked and said it would end the strike to allow Fair Work to decide whether their claims were legit or total and utter bollocks. The MUA this week told its members, given they hadn't worked for 3 months, it would be prudent to reacquaint themselves with new policies and procedures, which meant port workers spent 4 hours in the office reading instead of being on the tools.
Half a day spent reading.
Fremantle's newest book club started on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the team leaders who weren't in the previous day also had to reread the procedures, and, out of respect, the rest of the shift waited for them to finish.
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
The safety cramming session started at 7:30 in the morning and went all the way through till 11 a.m, which was pretty close to lunchtime. So they had something to eat for half an hour, went on the tools, and then home at 3 p.m.
Brilliant. Tough day at the office.
Gets better. One of the things the Wharfies are pissed off about is not being able to have their phones on them when they're working. The cranes down at Freo generally lift 10 tonnes. The Wharfies are currently restricting lifts to about 2 tonnes, so it takes 5 times as long to do anything. The reason they've given is they don't have access to the calculators on their phones, which they've never been able to have on shift, and while they're confident in their mental arithmetic,
The sum of the square roots of any two sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side.
That's a right triangle, you idiot! Go!
out of abundant caution, they're taking a conservative approach to what's lifted because without their phones they can't add up the total load and ensure it's under the 10-tonne threshold.
What's Qube done about it?
What have they done to make sure Fremantle Port, WA's trade gateway to the world, remains open? They've gone to Officeworks to get some calculators. Seriously. I'm Ben Harvey. For more update, click the subscribe button below.